45. Niko. About 5 miles east of camp, a black SUV was parked on the beach. They tied up the boat at a private dock. Niko helped Dakota and Layla haul Mitchell Cahill ashore. The big guy was still only half conscious, mumbling what Niko assumed were football cards. Red 12s, right 31, hike. Then he giggled uncontrollably. We'll leave him here, Layla said. Just don't bind him, poor guy. What about the car? Dakota asked. The keys are in the glove compartment, but can you drive? Layla frowned. I thought you could drive. Aren't you 17? I never learned, Dakota said. I was busy. I've got it covered, Niko promised. They both looked at him. You're like 14, Layla said. Niko enjoyed how nervous the Romans acted around him, even though they were older and bigger and more experienced fighters. I didn't say I would be behind the wheel. He knelt and placed his hands on the ground. He felt like the nearest graves, the bones of forgotten humans, buried and scattered. He searched deeper, extending his sentences into the underworld. Julius Albert, let's go. The ground split. A zombie in ragged 19th century 19th century motoring outfit clawed his way to the surface. Layla stepped back. Dakota screamed like a kindergartner. Where's that man? Dakota protested. This is my driver, Niko said. Julius Albert finished first in the Paris Rouen motorcar race back in 1895, but he wasn't awarded the prize because his steam car used a stoker. Layla stared at him. What are you even talking about? He's a restless soul, always looking at another chance to drive, Niko said. For the last few years, he's been my driver. Whenever I need one. You have a zombie shuffle, Layla said. I call shotgun. Niko got into the passenger side. Reculantly, the Romans climbed in the back. One thing about Julius Albert, he never got emotional. He could sit in crosstown traffic all day without losing his patience. He was immune to road rage. He could even drive straight up to an encampment of wild centaurs and navigate through them without getting nervous. The centaurs was like nothing Niko had ever seen. They had back ends like Palaminos, the tattoos all over their hairy arms and chests, and bullish horns protruding from their foreheads. Niko doubted they could blend in with humans as easily as Chiron did. At least 200 were sparring restlessly with swords and spears, or roasting animal carcasses over open fires. Carnival censures. That idea made Niko shudder. Their camp spilled across the farm road that mended around Camp Half-Blood's southeast perimeter. The SUV nudged its way through, honking when necessary. Occasionally, a centaur glared through the driver's side window, saw the zombie driver and backed away in shock. Pluto's paw joints, Dakota muttered. Even more centaurs arrived overnight. Don't make eye contact, Layla warned. They take that as a challenge for a duel to the death. Niko stared straight ahead as the CVU pushed through. His heart was pounding, but he wasn't scared. He was angry. Octavian had surrounded Camp Half-Blood with monsters. Sure, Niko had mixed emotions about the camp. He felt rejected there, out of place, unwanted, unloved. How much it meant to him. The last place by Anchor and he had shared as a home, the only place they'd ever felt safe, even if only temporarily. They rounded a bend in the road, and Niko's fists clenched. More monsters, hundreds more. Dog-headed men prowled in packs, their poleaxes gleaming in the light of campfires. Beyond that, milled a tribe of two-headed men, dressed in rags and blankets like homeless guys, armed with a haphazard collection of slings, clubs, and metal pipes. Octavian is an idiot, Niko hissed. He thinks he can control these creatures. They just kept showing up, Layla said. Before he knew it, well, look. Layla said, look. The Legion was away at the base of Camp Half-Blood Hill. Its 5 cohorts in perfect order, its standards bright and proud. Giant eagles circled overhead. Their siege weapons, 6 golden onagers the size of houses, were arrayed behind in a loose semicircle, 3 on each flank. But for all its impressive discipline, the 12th Legion looked pitifully small, a splotch of demigod Vela in a sea of ravenous monsters. Niko wished he still had the scepter of Diocletian, but he doubted a legion of dead warriors would make a dent in this army. Even the Argo too couldn't do much against this kind of strength. I have to disable the onagers, Niko said. We don't have much time. We'll never get close to them, Layla warned. Even if we get the entire 4th and 5th cohort to follow us, the other cohorts will try to stop us. And those siege weapons are manned by Octavian's most loyal followers. We won't get close by force, Niko agreed. But alone, I can do it. Dakota, Layla, Judas Alba would drive you to the Legion lines. Get out, talk to the troops, convince them to follow your lead. I'll need a distraction. Dakota frowned. All right, but I'm not hurting any of my fellow Legionnaires. No one's asking you to, Niko growled. But if we don't stop this war, the entire Legion will be wiped out. You said these monsters tried to take insult easily. Yes, Dakota said. I mean, for instance, you make any comment to those 2-headed guys about the way they smell, and oh, he grinned. If we started a brawl by accident, of course. I'll be counting on you, Niko said. Layla frowned. But how are you? I'm going dark, Niko said. And he faded into the shadows. He thought he was prepared. He wasn't. Even after 3 days of rest and the wondrous healing properties of goat hedges gooey brown gunk, Niko started to dissolve the moment he shadow jumped. His limbs turned to vapor. Cold seeped in his chest. Voices of spirits whispered in his ears. Help us, remember us, join us. He hadn't realized how much he had relied on Raina. Without her strength, he felt as weak as a newborn colt, wobbling dangerously, ready to fall at every step. No, he told himself, I am Niko D'Angelo, son of Hades. I control the shadows. They do not control me. He stumbled back into the mortal world at the crest of Half-Blood Hill. He fell to his knees, hugging Thaddeus' pine tree for support. The golden fleece was no longer in its branches. The guardian dragon was gone. Perhaps they'd been moved to a safer spot with the battle so close. Niko wasn't sure, but looking down at the Roman forces arrayed outside the valley, his spirits wavered. The nearest onager was 100 yards downhill, encircled in spiked trenches and guarded by a dozen demigods. The machine was primed, ready to fire. Its huge sling cupped a projectile the size of a Honda Civic, glowing with flecks of gold. With icy certainty, Niko realized what Octavian was up to. The projectile was a mixture of incendiaries and imperial gold. Even a small amount of imperial gold could be incredible volatile. Exposed too much heat or pressure, stuff would explode with devastating impact. And of course, it was deadly to demigods as well as monsters. If that onager scored a hit on Camp Half-Blood, anything in the blast zone would be annihilated, vaporized by the heat, or disintegrated by the shrapnel. And the Romans had 6 onagers, all stocked with powder or ammunition. Evil, Niko said. This is evil. He tried to think. dawn was breaking. He couldn't possibly take down all 6 weapons before the attack began. Even if he found the strength to shadow travel that many times, if he managed it once more, it would be a miracle. He spotted a Roman command tent behind, and to the left of the legionnaire. Octavian would probably be there, enjoying breakfast at a safe distance from the fighting. He wouldn't lead his troops into battle. The little scumbag would hope to destroy the Greek camp from a distance, wait for the flames to die out, then march in unopposed. Niko's throat constricted with hate. He concentrated on the tent, envisioning his next jump. If he could assassinate it, Octavian might solve the problem. The order to attack might never be given. Niko was about to attempt it when a voice behind him said, "Niko." He spun his sword instantly in his hand and almost decapitated Will Solus. "Put that down!" Will hissed. "What are you doing here?" Niko was dumbstruck. Will and 2 other campers were crouched in the grass, binoculars around their necks and daggers at their sides. They wore black jeans and t-shirts with black grease paint on their face like commonoids. "Me," Niko asked. "What are you doing? Getting yourself killed?" Will scouted. "Hey, we're scouting the enemy. We took precautions." "You dressed in black," Niko noted. "With the sun coming up, you painted your face, but didn't cover that mop of blonde hair. You might as well be waving a yellow flag." Will's ears reddened. Lil Ellen wrapped some mist around us too. "Hi." The girl next to him wiggled her fingers. She looked a little flustered. "You're Niko, right? I've heard a lot about you. And this is Cecil from Herma's cabin." Niko knelt next to them. "Did Coach Head make it to camp?" Lou Ellen giggled nervously. "Did he ever?" Wilbur elbowed her. "Yeah, Head is fine. He just made it in time for the baby's birth." "The baby?" Niko grinned, which hurt his face muscular. He wasn't used to making that expression. "Maddie and the kid are all right." "Fine, a little cute little satyr boy," Will shuddered. "But I delivered it." "Have you ever delivered a baby?" No. I had to give some fresh air. That's why I volunteered for this mission. God saw Olympus. My hands are still shaking, see?" He took Niko's hands, which sent an electric current down Niko's spine. He quickly withdrew it. "Whatever," he snapped. "We don't have time for chit-chat. The Romans are attacking at dawn, and I've got to..." "We know," Will said. "But if you're planning to shadow travel to that command tent, forget it." Niko glared at him. "Excuse me?" He expected Will to flinch or look away. Most people did, but Will's blue eyes stayed fixed on his, annoyingly determined. "Coach Hedge told me all about your shadow travel. You can't try that again." "I just did try it again. Solex, I'm fine." "No, you're not. I'm a healer. I could even feel the darkness in your hand as soon as I touched it. Even if you made it to that tent, you'd be in no shape to fight. But you won't make it. One more slip and you won't come back. You are not shadow traveling. Doctor's orders." "The camp is about to be destroyed and we'll stop the Romans," Will said. "We'll do it our way. Lou Ellen will control the mist. We'll sneak around, do as much damage as we can to those onagers, but no shadow travel, but no." Lou Ellen and Cecil's head was swiveled back and forth like they were watching a really intense tennis match. I like tennis. Niko sighed in expiration. He hated working with other people. They were always cramping his style, making him uncomfortable and Will Solace. Niko revised his impressions of the son of Apollo. He'd always thought of Will as easygoing and laid back. Apparently he could also be stubborn and aggravating. Niko gazed down. A camp half-blood, where the rest of the Greeks were preparing for war. Past troops and ballistae, the canoe lake glittered pink. In the first light of dawn, Niko remembered the first time he'd arrived at Camp Half-Blood, crash landing in Apollo's sun car, which had been covered in a fiery school bus. He remembered Apollo smiling and tanned and completely cool in the shades. Darius had said, "He's hot." "He's a sun god," Percy replied. "That's not what I meant." Why was Niko thinking about that now? The random memory irritated him, made him feel jittery. He arrived at Camp Half-Blood thanks to Apollo. Now on, what would likely be his last day at camp? He was stuck with the son of Apollo. "Whatever," Niko said. "But we have to hurry, and you'll follow my lead." "Fine," Will said. "Just don't ask me to deliver any more satyr babies, and we'll get along great." Chapter 46. Niko. They made it to the first on Asia, just as chaos broke loose in the Legionnaire. On the far end of the line, cries went up in the 5th cohort. Legionnaires scattered and dropped their pillar. A dozen centaurs barreled through the ranks, yelling and waving their clubs, followed by a horde of 2-headed men, banging on trash can lids. "What's going on down there?" Llewellyn asked. "That's my distraction," Niko said. "Come on, all the guards have clustered on the right side of the Onager, trying to see what was going on down the ranks," which gave Niko and his comrades a clear shot to the left. They passed within a few feet of the nearest Roman, but Legionnaire didn't notice them. Llewellyn's mist magic seemed to be working. They jumped the spiked trench and reached the machine. "I brought some Greek fire," Cecil whispered. "No," Niko said. "If we make the damage too obvious, we'll never get to the other ones in time." "Can you recalibrate the aim, like towards the other Onager's firing lines?" Cecil grinned. "Oh, I like the way you think. They send me because I excel at messing things up." He went to work while Niko and the others stood guard. Meanwhile, the 5th cohort was brawling with the 2-headed men. The 4th cohort moved in to help. The other 3 cohorts held their positions, but the officers were having trouble keeping order. "All right," Cecil announced. "Let's move." They shuffled across the hillside towards the next Onager. This time the mist didn't work so well. One of the Onager guards yelled, "Hey! Got this!" Will sprinted off, which was possibly the stupidest diversion Niko could imagine, and 6 of the guards chased after him. The other Romans advanced on Niko, but Llewellyn appeared out of the mist and yelled, "Hey, catch!" She lobbed a white ball the size of an apple. The Roman in the middle caught it instinctively. A 20-foot spear of powder exploded outwards. When the dust settled, all 6 Romans were squealing pink piglets. "Nice work," Niko said. Llewellyn blushed. Well, it's the only pig ball I have, so don't ask for an encore." And Cecil pointed. Somebody better help Will. Even in their armour, the Romans started to gain on Solace. Niko cursed and raced after them. He didn't want to kill other demigods if he could avoid it. Fortunately, he didn't need to. He tripped the Roman at her back and the others turned. Niko jumped into the crowd, kicking groins, smacking faces with the flat of his blade, bashing helmets with his pommel. In 10 seconds, the Romans all lay groaning and dazed on the ground. Will punched his shoulder. "Thanks for the assist. 6 at once isn't bad." "Not bad?" Niko glared at him. "Next time I'll just let them run you down, Solace." They never catch me." Cecil waved at them from the Onager, signalling that his job was done. They all moved towards the 3rd siege machine. In the Legion ranks, everything was still in chaos. But the officers were starting to reassert control. The 5th and 4th cohorts regrouped while the 2nd and 3rd acted as riot police, shoving centaurs and Failure, and 2-headed men back in their respective camps. The 1st cohort stood closest to the Onager, a little too close for Niko's comfort, but they seemed occupied by a couple of officers parading in front of them, shouting orders. Niko hoped they could sneak up on the 3rd siege machine. One more Onager redirected, and they might stand a chance. Unfortunately, the guards spotted The guards spotted them from 20 yards away. One yelled, "There!" Llewellyn cursed. They're expecting an attack now. The mist doesn't work well against alert enemies. Do you run? No, Niko said. Let's give them what we expect. He spread his hands in front of the Romans. The ground erupted. 5 skeletons clawed out of the earth. Cecil and Llewellyn charged in to help. Niko tried to follow, but he would have fallen on his face if Will hadn't caught him. You idiot! Will put an arm around him. I told you no more of that underworld magic. I'm fine. Shut up, you're not. From his pocket, Will dug out a pack of gum. Niko wanted to pull away. He hated physical contact, but Will was a lot stronger than he looked. Niko found himself leaning against him, relying on his support. Take this, Will said. You want me to chew gum? It's medicinal. It should keep you alive and alert for a few more hours. Niko shoved a stick of gum into his mouth. Tastes like torn mud. Stop complaining. Hey! Cecil limped over, looking like he pulled a muscle. You guys kind of missed the fight. Llewellyn followed, grinning. Behind them, all the Roman guards were tangled in a weird assortment of ropes and bones. Thanks for the skeleton, she said. Great trick, which you won't be doing again, Will said. Niko realized he was still leaning against Will. He pushed him away and stood on his own 2 feet. I'll do what I need to. Will rolled his eyes. Fine, Death Boy, if you want to get yourself killed. Don't call me Death Guy. Death Boy. Llewellyn cleared her throat. Guys, drop your weapons! Niko turned. The fight at the third age had not gone unnoticed. The entire first cohort was advancing on them. Spears levelled, shields locked. In front of them marched Octavian. Purple robes all over his armour, imperial gold jewellery glittering on his neck and arms, and a crown of laurels on his head, as if he'd already won the battle. Next to him was the legion's standard bearer, Jacob, holding a golden eagle and 6 huge cynocephali, their canine teeth bared, their swords glowing red. Well, Octavian snarled. Gracious Sabortius. He turned to his dog-headed warriors. Tear them apart. Looks like we can have time for another 5 more chapters or something. Chapter 47, Niko. Niko wasn't sure whether to kick himself or Will Solace. If he hadn't been so distracted bickering with the son of Apollo, he would never have allowed the enemy to get so close. As the dog-headed men barreled forward, Niko raised his sword. He doubted he had the strength left to win, but before he could attack them, Will let out a piercing taxicab whistle. All 6 dogmen dropped their weapons, grabbed their ears, and fell down in agony. Dude! Cecil opened his mouth to pop his ears. What the actual hate us? A little warning next time. It's even worse for the dogs, Will shrugged. One of my few music talents. I do a really awful stray sonic whistle. Niko didn't complain. He waded through the dogmen, jabbing them with his sword. They dissolved into shadows. Octavian and the other Romans seemed too stunned to react. My allied guards! Octavian looked around for sympathy. Did you see what he did to my allied guards? Some dogs need to be put down. Niko took a step forward. Like you. The entire first cohort wavered. Then they remembered themselves and levelled their pillar. You will be destroyed! Octavian shrieked. You Gracie sneak around sabotaging our weapon, attacking our men. You mean the weapon that you were about to fire at us, Cecil asked? And the men who were about to burn our camp to ashes? Added Llewellyn. Just like a Greek, Octavian yelled. Trying to twist things around. Well, that won't work. He
pointed to the nearest legionnaires. You, and you. Check all M1 agents. Make sure they're operational. I want them fired simultaneously as soon as possible. Go! The 4 Romans ran. Niko tried to keep his expression neutral. Please don't check the firing trajectory. He thought. He hoped Cecil has done his work well. It was one thing to screw up a huge weapon. It was another thing to screw it up so subtly that no one noticed until it was too late. But if anyone had that skill, it would be a child of Hermes. Got a trickery. Octavian marched up to Niko. To his credit, the ogre didn't seem afraid. His only weapon was a dagger. He stopped so close that Niko could see the bloodshot veins in his pale, watery eyes. His face was gaunt. His hair was the colour of overcooked spaghetti. I like spaghetti; they're delicious. Niko knew Octavian was a legacy, a descendant of Apollo. Many generations removed. Now he couldn't help thinking that Octavian looked like a watered-down, unhealthy version of Will Solis, like a photo that had been copied too many times. Whatever made a child of Apollo special, Octavian didn't have it. Tell me, son of Pluto, the ogre hissed. Why are you helping the Greeks? What has he ever done for you? Niko was itching to stab Octavian in the chest. He dreaming of that ever since Bryce Lawrence had attacked them in South Carolina. But now that was face to face. Niko hesitated. He had no doubt he could kill Octavian before the first cohort intervened. Nor did Niko particularly care if he died for his actions. The trade-off would be worth it. But after what happened with Bryce, the idea of cutting down another demigod in cold blood, even Octavian didn't sit well, nor did it seem right to sentence Cecil, Llewellyn, and Will to die with him. It doesn't seem right, another part of him wondered. Since when do I worry about what's right? I'm helping the Greeks and Romans, Niko said. Octavian laughed. Don't try to con me. What have they ever offered you? A place in their camp? They wanted to honour their agreement. I don't want a place in their camp. Niko snarled. Or in yours. When this war is over, I am leaving both camps for good. Will Solis made it sound like he'd been punched. Why would you do that? Niko scowled. It's none of your business, but I don't belong. That's obvious. No one wants me. I'm a child of... Oh, please. Will sounded unusually angry. Nobody at Camp Harvard ever pushed you away. You have friends. All these people who like to be your friend. You push yourself away. If you get your head out of that brooding cloud of yours for once, enough! Octavian snapped. Die, Anglo! I can meet any offer the Greeks could make. I always thought you would make a powerful ally. I see the ruthlessness in you, and I appreciate that. I can assure you a place in your Rome. All you have to do is step aside and allow the Romans to win. The god Apollo showed me the future. No! Will Solis shoved Niko out of the way and got in Octavian's face. I am the son of Apollo, you anemic loser. My father hasn't shown anyone the future because the power of the prophecy isn't working. But this, he waved loosely at the assembled legion. The hordes of monsters' armies spread across the hillside. This is not what Apollo would want. Octavian's lip curled. You lie! The god told me personally that I would be remembered as the saviour of Rome. I would lead the legion to victory, and I will start by... Niko felt the sound, but before he heard it, thunk, 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 reverberating through the earth like the massive gears of a drawbridge. All the ages fired at once, and 6 golden comets blowed into the sky. By destroying the Greeks! Octavian cried with glee. They The days of Camp Half-Blood are over. Niko couldn't think of anything more beautiful than of course projectile. At least not today. From the three sabotage machine, their payloads veered sideways, arcing towards the barrage from the other three ages. The fireballs didn't collide directly. They didn't need to. As soon as the missiles got close to one another, all 6 warheads detonated in midair, spraying a dome of golden fire that sucked the oxygen right out of the sky. The heat stung Niko's face. The grass hissed. The tops of the trees steamed, but when the fireworks faded, no serious damage had been done. Octavian reacted his fists. He stomped his feet and yelled, "No! Reload!" No one in the first cohort moved. Niko heard the tromping to his right. The 5th cohort was marching towards them double time. Dakota in the lead. Further downhill, the rest of the Legion was trying to form up, but the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th cohorts were now surrounded by a sea of ill-tempered Mansoura's allies. The Orcsile forces didn't look happy about the explosion overhead. No doubt they were waiting for Camp Half-Blood to go up in flames, so they got char-grilled demigods for breakfast. "Octavian," Dakota called, "we have new orders." Octavian's left eye twitched so violently it looked like it might explode. "Orders from whom?" "Not from me." "From Raina," Dakota said, loud enough to make sure everyone in the first cohort could hear. "She'd order us to stand down." "Raina!" Octavian laughed, though no one seemed to get the joke. "You mean the outlaw I sent you to arrest? The ex-praetor who conspired to betray her own people with this grey cuss?" He jabbed his finger in Niko's chest. "You're taking orders from her." The 5th cohort formed up behind their centurion, uneasily facing the comrades in the 1st. Dakota crossed the arms stubbornly. "Raina is the praetor until voted otherwise by the Senate. This is war!" Octavian yelled. "I brought you to the brink of ultimate victory, and you want to give up?" First cohort, arrest Centurion and Dakota and any who stand with him. 5th cohort, remember your vows to Rome and the Legion. You will obey me. Will Sawyer shook his head. "Don't do this, Octavian. Don't force your people to choose. This is your last chance." "My last chance?" Octavian grinned, madness glinting in his eyes. "I will save Rome. Now, Romans, follow my orders. Arrest Dakota, destroy these graysome scums, and reload those on ages." What the Romans would have done, left to their own devices, Niko didn't know, but he hadn't counted on the Greeks. At that moment, the entire army of Camp Half-Blood appeared on the crest of Camp Half-Blood of Half-Blood Hill. Clarice LaRue rode in the lead, on a red war chariot pulled by metal horses. 100 demigods fanned out around her, with twice the many satyrs and nature spirits led by Grover Underwood. Tyson lumbered forward with 6 other Cyclopses. Cheering stood in full white stallion mode, his bow drawn. It was not an impressive sight, but all Niko could think was, "No, not now!" Clarice yelled, "Romans, you have fired on our camp! Withdraw or be destroyed!" Octavian reeled on his troops. "You see the trick! They divided us so they could launch a surprise attack. Legion, can you formate? Charge!" Chapter 48, Niko. Niko wanted to yell, "Time out, hold it, freeze!" But he knew it wouldn't do any good. After weeks of waiting, agonizing, and steaming, the Greeks and Romans wanted blood. Trying to stop the battle now would be like trying to push back a flood after the dam broke. Will Solis saved the day. Put his finger in his mouth and did a taxicab whistle. Even more horrible than the last. Several Greeks dropped their swords. A ripper went through the Roman line like the entire first cohort was shuddering. "Don't be stupid!" Will yelled. "Look!" He pointed to the north, and Niko grinned from ear to ear. He decided there was something more beautiful than an off-course projectile. The Athena-Parthenos gleamed in the sunrise, flying in from the coast, suspended from the tethers of 6-winged horses. Roman eagles circled, but did not attack. A few of them swooped in, grabbed the cables, and helped us carry the statue. Niko didn't see Blackjack, which worried him, but Reina Ramirez Arellano rode on Guido's back. His sword was held high. Her purple cloak glittered, strangely catching sunlight. Both armies stared, dumbfounded, at the 40-foot tall golden ivory statue came before a landing. "Great demigods!" Reina's voice boomed as if projected from the statue itself, like the Athena-Parthenos had become a stack of concert speakers. "Behold your most sacred statue, the Athena-Parthenos, wrongly taken by the Romans. I return it to you now as a gesture of peace." The statue settled on the crest of the hill, about 20 feet away from Thaddeus' pine tree, and suddenly the gold light rippled across the ground into the valley of Camp Half-Blood, and down the opposite side through the Roman ranks. Warmth seeped into Niko's bones as comforting, peaceful sensation he hadn't had since. He couldn't even remember. A voice inside him seemed to whisper, "You are not alone. You are part of the Olympian family. The gods have not abandoned you." "Romans!" Reina yelled. "I do this for the good of the legion, for the good of Rome. We must stand together with our Greek brethren." "Listen to her!" Niko marched forward. He wasn't even sure why he did it. While the other side listened to him, he was the worst speaker, the worst absador ever. He shrunk between the battle lines, his black sword in his hand. Reina risked her life for all of you. Reina risked her life for all of you. We brought the statue halfway across the world, Roman and Greek working together, because we must join forces. Gaia is rising. If we don't work together, you will die. A voice shook the earth. Niko's feeling of peace and safety instantly vanished when it swept across the hillside. The ground itself became fluid and sticky. The grass pulling at Niko's boots. A futile gesture. Niko felt as if he was standing on the goddess's throat, as if the entire length of the Long Island resonated with her vocal cords. "But if it makes you happy you may die together!" "No!" Octavian scrambled backwards. No! He broke and ran, pushing through his own troops. "Close ranks!" Reina yelled. The Greeks and Romans would move together, standing shoulder to shoulder, as all around them the earth shook. Octavian's ox-hide troops surged forward, surrounding the demigods. Both camps were put together were a miskin dot in a sea of enemies. They would make their final stand on Half-Blood Hill, with the Athena-Parthenos at their rallying point. But even here they stood on enemy ground, because Gaia was the earth, and the earth was awake. And we're going off course now, guys. Chapter 49, Jason. Jason had heard of someone's life flashing before his eyes, but he didn't think it would be like this. Standing with his friends in a defensive ring, surrounded by giants, then looking up at an impossible vision in the sky. Jason could clearly picture himself 50 years in the future. He was sitting in a rocking chair on the front porch of a house on the California coast. Piper was serving lemonade. Her hair was grey. Deep lines etched the corner of her eyes, but she was still as beautiful as ever. Jason's grandchild sat around his feet, and he was trying to explain them what had happened on this day in Athens. "No, I'm serious," he said. until 6 were demigods on the ground, and 1 more in a burning ship above the Acropolis. We were surrounded by 30-foot-tall giants who were about to kill us. Then the sky opened, and the gods descended. "Grandad," the kid said, "you're full of cyst." "I'm not kidding," he protested. The Olympian gods came charging out of the heavens on their war chariots, trumpets blaring, swords flaming, and your great-grandfather, the king of the gods, led the charge, a javelin of pure electricity crackling in his hand. His grandkids laughed at him, and Piper glanced over, smiling, like, "Would you believe it if you hadn't been there? If you hadn't been there?" But Jason was there. He looked up at the clouds parted over the Acropolis, and he almost doubted the new prescription lenses Asclepius had given him. Instead of blue eyes, he saw black space spangled with stars. The palace of Mount Olympus gleamed, silver and gold in the background, and an army of gods charged down from on high. It was too much progress, and it was only probably better for his health that he didn't see it all. Only later would Jason be able to remember bits and pieces. There was supersized Jupiter. No, this was Jesus, his original form, riding into battle in a golden chariot. A lightning bolt the size of a telephone pole crackling in her hand, putting his chariot with 4 horses made of wind. Each constantly shifting from a grinder human form, trying to break free. For a split second, one took on the icy visage of Boreas. Another war notices swirling crown of fire and a steam. A third flashed a smug, lazy smile on Zephyros, as Jesus had bound and harnessed the 4 wind gods themselves. On the underbelly of the Argo 2, the glass bag was split open. The goddess Night tumbled out free from her golden net. She spread her glittering wings and soared to Jesus' side, taking her rightful place as his chariot. "My mind is restored!" she roared. "Victory to the gods!" As at Jesus' left flank rode Hera, her chariot pulled by enormous peacocks, their rainbow-coloured plumage so bright it gave Jason the spins. Hera exploded with glee as he thundered down on the back of a fire-breathing horse. His spear glistened red. In the last second before the gods reached the Parthenon, they seemed to display themselves like they'd jumped through a hyperspace. The chariots disappeared. Suddenly, Jason and his friends were surrounded by the Olympians, now human-sized, tiny, next to giants but glowing with power. Jason shouted and charged furious, and his friends joined in the carnage. The fighting raged all over the Parthenon and spilled over across the Acropolis. Out of the corner of his eyes, Jason saw the Anubis fighting Enceladus. At her side stood a woman with long dark hair and golden armor over her white robes. The goddess thrust her spear at the giant, then brandished her shield with the first bronze visage of Medusa. Together, Athena and Anubis drove Enceladus back into the nearest wall of metal scaffolding, which collapsed on top of him. On the opposite side of the temple, Frank Zhang and the god Ares smashed through entire phalanx of giants. Ares with his spear and shield, Frank as an African elephant with his trunk and feet. The war god laughed and stabbed and descended below like a kid destroying pinatas. Hazel raced through the battle on Ares' back, disappearing in the mist whenever a giant came close, and then appearing behind him and stabbing him in the back. The goddess Hecate danced in her wake, setting fire to the enemies with 2 blazing torches. Jason didn't see Hades, but whenever a giant stumbled and fell to the ground, the ground broke open and the giant was snapped up and swallowed. But Percy battled the giant twins Otis and Ephialtus, while at his side, thought a bearded man would try and allowed Hawaii in shirt. The twin giants stumbled. Poseidon's trident morphed into a fire hose, and the gods sprayed the giants out of the Parthenon with high-powered blasts in the shape of wild horses. Pab was maybe the most impressive. She fenced the giantess Peiboa sword against sword, despite the fact that her opponent was 5 times larger. Pab seemed to be holding her own. The goddess floated around them on the small white clouds, strewing rose petals in the giantess's eyes, and calling encouragement to Piper. "Lovely, my dear. Yes, good. Hit her again." Whenever Peiboa tried to strike, doves rose up from nowhere and fluttered in the giantess's face. As for Leo, he was racing across the deck of the Argo too, shooting ballistae, dropping hammers on the giants' heads, and blow-torching their wine cloths behind him. At the helm, a burly bearded guy in a mechanic's uniform was tinkering with the controls, furiously trying to keep the shift alone. The strangest sight was the old giant dude who was getting bludgeoned to death by 3 old ladies with brass clubs, the fates armed for war. Jason decided there was nothing in the world scarier than a gang of bat-wielding grannies. He noticed all of these things and a dozen old, other meatless in progress, but most of his attention was fixed on the enemy before him, Phoiphon, the giant king, and on the god who fought by Jason's side, Zeus. "My father," Jason told him in disbelief. Phoiphon didn't give him much chance to save of the moment. The giant used his spear in a whirlwind of swipes, jabs and slashes. It was all Jason could do to stay alive. Still, Zeus' presence felt reassuringly familiar. Even though Jason had never met his father, he was reminded of all his happiest moments. His birthday picnic with Piper in Rome, the day Olympus showed him Camp Jupiter for their first time, the games of hide and seek with Thalia in their apartment when he was tiny, an afternoon on the beach when his mother had picked him up and kissed him and showed him an oncoming storm. Never be afraid of a thunderstorm, Jason. That is your father letting you know he loves you. Jesus smelled of rain and clean wind. He made the air burn with energy. Up close, his lightning bolt appeared as a bronze rod of a meter long, pointed on both ends, with blades of energy ascending from both sides to form a javelin of white electricity. He slashed across the giant's path, and Phoiphon collapsed into his makeshift throne, which crumbled under the giant's weight. "No throne for you, Zeus growled. "Not here, not ever! You cannot stop us," the giant yelled. "It is done, the Earth Mother is awake!" In answer, Zeus blasted the throne to rubble. The giant king flew backwards out of the temple, and Jason ran after him, his father at his heels. They backed Phoiphon to the edge of the cliffs. The whole of modern Athens spread out below. Lightning had melted all the weapons in the giant's hair. Molten celestial bronze dripped through his dreadlocks like caramel. His skin steamed and blistered. Phoiphon snarled and raised his spear. "Your cause is lost, Zeus. Even if you defeat me, the Earth Mother shall simply raise me again." "Then perhaps," Zeus said, "you should not die in the embrace of Gaia. Jason, my son." Jason had never felt so good, so recognized as when his father had said his name. It was last winter at Camp Half-Blood, when his erased memory had finally returned. Jason understood another layer of his existence. A part of his identity had been cloudy before. Now he had no doubt. He was the son of Jupiter, god of the sky. He was his father's child. Jason advanced. Phoiphon lashed out wildly with his spear, but Jason cut it in half with his gladius. He charged in, jabbing his sword through the giant's breastplate, then summoned the winds and blasted Phoiphon off the edge of the cliff. As the giant fell, screaming, Zeus pointed his lightning bolt. An arc of pure white heat vaporized Phoiphon in mid-air. His ashes drifted down in a gentle cloud, dusting the tops of the olive trees. Zeus turned and on the slopes of Olympus. Zeus turned to Jason, his lightning bolt flickered off, and Zeus clipped the celestial bronze rod to his belt. The god's eyes were stormy grey, his salt and pepper hair, and his beard looked like a straight as cloud. Jason found it strange that the Lord of the Universe, King of Olympus, was only a few inches taller than he was. "My son," Jesus clasped Jason's shoulder. "There was so much I would like to tell you about." The god took a heavy breath, making the air crackle, and Jason's new glasses fog up. "Alas, as King of Lords, I must not show my favoritism to my children when we return to the other Olympians, and not be able to praise you as much as I would like, or give you as much credit as you deserve." "I don't want to be praised," Jason's voice quivered. "Just a little time together would be nice. I mean, I don't even know you." Jesus' gaze was as far away as the ozone layer. "I'm always with you, Jason. I watch your progress with pride, but it was never possible for us to be." He curled his fingers as if trying to pluck the right words out of the air. "Close, normal, a true father and son from birth. You were destined to be heiress, to appease her wrath. Even your name, Jason, was her choice. You didn't ask for this. I did not want it. But when I gave you over to her, I had no idea what a good man you would become. Your journey has shaped you. You made both kind and great. Whatever happens when we return to Parthenon, I know that I do not hold you uncompatible. You have proven yourself a true hero." Jason's emotions were a jumble in his chest. "What do you mean? Whatever happens? The worst is not over," Jesus warned, "and someone must take the blame for what has happened. Come." Chapter 50, Jason. Nothing was left of the giants except heaps of ash, a few spears, and some burning dreadlocks. The Argo, too, was still aloft, barely moored on top of the Parthenon. Half the ship's oars were broken off, or tangled. Smoke streamed from several large splits in the hull. The sails were peppered with burning holes. Leo looked almost as bad. He stood in the midst of the temple with the other crew members, his face covered in soot, his clothes smouldering. The gods fanned out in a semicircle as Jesus approached. None of them seemed particularly joyful about their victory. Apollo and Artemis stood together in the shadow of a column as if trying to hide. Hera and Poseidon were having an intense discussion with another goddess in green and gold robes. Perhaps Demeter. Nike tried to put a golden laurel wreath on Hecate's head, but the goddess of magic swatted away. Hermes sneaked close to Athena, attempting to put his arm around her. Athena turned his Aegis shield his way, and Hermes scuffled off. The only Olympian who seemed in a good mood was Ares. He laughed and pantomimed, gutting an enemy, while Frank listened, his expression polite but queasy. "Listen," Caesar said. "We are healed thanks to the work of these demigods. The Athena Parthos, which once stood in its temple, now stands at Camp-Harblood. It has united our offspring, and thus our own essence." Lord Caesar's, Piper spoke up. "Is Rainer okay?" Niko and Coach Hedge. Jason couldn't quite believe Piper was asking after Rainer's health, but it made him glad. Jesus knitted his cloud-coloured eyebrows. They succeeded in their mission. As if this moment they are alive. Whether or not they are okay. "There is work to be done," Queen Hera interrupted. She spread her arms like she wanted a group hug. "With my heroes, you have triumphed over the giant, as I knew you would. My plan succeeded beautifully." Jesus turned on his wife. Thunder shook the Acropolis. "However, do not dare take credit. You have caused at least many problems as you've fixed." The Queen of Heaven blanched. "Husband, surely you see now. This was the only way." "There was never only one way," Jesus exploded. "That is why there are three fates, not one. Is this not so?" But by the ribbons of the giant king's throne, the three old ladies silently bowed their heads in recognition. Jason noticed the other gods stayed well away from the fates and their gleaming breast clubs. "Please, husband." Hera tried for a smile, but she was so clearly frightened that Jason almost felt sorry for her. "I only did what I..." "Silence!" Jesus snapped. "You disobeyed my order, nevertheless. I recognize that you acted with honest intentions. The valor of these 7 heroes has proven that you are not entirely without wisdom." Hera looked like she wanted to argue, but she kept her mouth shut. "Apollo, how?" Apollo, however, Zeus glared into the shadows where the twins were standing. My son, come here! Apollo inched forward like he was walking a plank. He looked so much like a teenage demigod. It was unnerving. No more than 17, wearing jeans and a Camp Harbor t-shirt with a bow over his shoulder, and a sword at his belt, with his tall-slit blonde hair and blue eyes. He might have been Jason's brother on the mortal side as well as the godly side. Jason wondered if Apollo had assumed this form to be inconspicuous or look pitiable to his father. The fear in Apollo's face certainly looked real, and also very human. The three Fates gathered around the god, circling him, their withered hands raised. Twice you have defied me, Zeus said. Apollo moistened his lips. My lord, you neglected your duty, you stumbled to flattery and vanity. You encouraged your descendant Octavian to follow his dangerous path, and you prematurely revealed a prophecy that may yet destroy us all. Enough! But enough, Zeus boomed. We'll speak of your punishment later. For now you await on Olympus. Zeus flicked his hand, and Apollo turned into a cloud of glitter. The Fates swirled around him, dissolved into air, and the glittery whirlwind shot him into the sky. What will happen to him? The gods stared at him. But Jason didn't care. Having actually met Zeus, he had found a new sympathy for Apollo. It is not your concern, Zeus said. We have other problems to address. An uncomfortable silence settled over the Parthenon. It didn't feel right to let the matter go. Jason didn't see how Apollo deserved to be singled out for punishment. Someone must take the blame, Zeus had said. But why? Father, Jason said. I made a vow to honor all the gods. I promised Kaimo Polio that once this war is over, none of the gods would be without destroying the camps. Zeus scowled. That's fine, but Kaim, who? Poseidon coughed into his fist. She's one of mine. My point, Jason said, is that blaming each other isn't going to solve anyone. That's how Romans and Greeks got divided in the first place. The air became dangerous ionized. Jason's scalp tingled. He realized he was risking his father's wrath. He might get turned into glitter or blasted off the Acropolis. He'd known his dad for 5 minutes and made a good impression. Now he was throwing it away. A good Roman wouldn't keep talking. Jason kept talking. Apollo wasn't a problem to punish him for gay awakening. He wanted to say stupid, but he caught himself unwise. Unwise? Zeus's voice was almost whispered. Unwise? Before the assembly of the god, you would call me unwise? Jason's friend watched on full alert. Percy looked like he was ready to jump in and fight at his side. Then Artemis stepped out of the shadows. Father, this hero has fought long and hard for our cause. His nerves are frayed. We should take that into account. Jason started to protest, but Artemis stopped him with a glance. Her expressions and message so clear that he might have been speaking in his mind. Thank you, demigods, but do not press this. I will reason with Jesus when he is calmer. Surely, Father, the goddess continued, we should attend to our more pressing problems as you pointed out. Gaia, Annabeth chimed in, clearly anxious to change the topic. She's awake, isn't she? Jesus turned towards her. Around Jason, the air molecules stopped humming. His skull felt like it had just come out of the microwave. That is correct, Jesus said. The blood of Olympus was spilled. She is fully conscious. Oh, come on, Percy complained. I get a little nosebleed and I wake up the entire earth. That's not fair. Athena shouldered her ages. Complaining of our unfairness is like assigning blame, Percy Jackson. It does no one any good. She gave Jason an approving glance. Now you must move quickly. Gaia rises to destroy your camp. Poseidon leaned on his trident. For once, Athena is right. For once, Athena protested. Why would Gaia be back at camp? Leo asked. Percy's nosebleed was here. Dude, Percy said. First off, you heard a thinner. Don't blame my nose. Second, gay as the earth, she can pop up anywhere she wants. Besides, she told us she was going to do this. She said the first thing on her to-do list was destroying our camp. Question is, how do we stop her? Frank looked at Jesus. Sir, your majesty, can't you God just pop over there with us? You've got the chariots and the magic powers and whatnot. Yes, Hazel said. We defeated the giants together in 2 seconds. Let's all go. No, Caesar said flatly. No, Jason asked. But Father, Jesus' eyes sparkled with power, and Jason realized he'd pushed his dad as far as he could for today, and maybe for the next 3 centuries. That's the problem with prophecy, Jesus growled. When Apollo allowed the prophecy of the 7 to be spoken, and when Hera took it upon herself to interpret the words, the fates wove the future in such a way that it had only so many possible outcomes, so many solutions. You 7, the demigods, are destined to defeat Gaia. We, the gods, cannot. I don't get it, Piper said. What's the point of being gods if you really have to rely on puny mortals to do your bidding? All the gods exchanged her dark looks. Aphrodite, however, laughed gently and kissed her daughter. My dear Piper, don't you think we've been asking ourselves that question for thousands of years? But it is what binds us together, keeps us eternal. We need your mortals as much as you need us. Annoying as that might be, it's true. Frank shuffled uncomfortably, like he missed being an elephant. So how can we possibly get to Camp Half-Blood in time to save it? It took us a few months to reach Greece. The winds, Jason said. Father, can't you unleash the winds to help to send our ship back? Jesus glowered. I could slap you back to Long Island. Was that a joke or a threat? Oh no, Jesus said. I mean it quite literally. I could slap your ship back to Camp Half-Blood, but the force involved, over by the ruined giant throne. My grungy god in the mechanic's uniform shook his head. My boy Leo built a good ship, but it won't sustain that kind of stress. It would break apart as soon as it arrived. Maybe sooner. Leo straightened his tool belt. The Argo 2 can make it. It only has to stay in one piece long enough to get us back home. Once there we can abandon ship. Dangerous, warned Hephaestus. Perhaps fatal. The goddess Nike twirled a laurel wreath on her finger. Victory is always dangerous, and it often requires sacrifice. Leo Voldex, I have discussed this, she said pointedly at Leo. Jason didn't like that at all. He remembered Asclepius's grim expression when the doctor had exclaimed, Leo, oh my, oh, I see. Jason knew what they had to do to defeat Gaia. He knew the risks, but he wanted to take those risks himself, not to put them on Leo. Piper will have the Physikians cure, he told himself. She'll keep us both covered. Leo, Annabeth said, what is it Nike talking about? Leo waved with a question. The usual victory, sacrifice, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter, we can do this, guys. We have to do this. A feeling of dread settled over Jason. Jesus was correct about one thing. The worst was yet to come. Storm or fire, do not despair. Jason made the choice. Leo's right. All aboard for one last trip. Right, everybody, that's the end of me reading you today's book. So bye-bye, everyone, and thank you for listening to this.